Morning, and welcome back to the Heclapar versus Wirraway play-by-mail campaign. It is the 31st of January, 1942, D-Day for the forces of Japan in India. We have a couple hundred transports escorted by 8 carriers, 4 battleships, 6 cruisers, and a whole host of destroyers off the coast of India. Okay, so first landings go in. Interesting, it's not actually the unit I had, or the convoy uh, that I had expected to hit the beaches first. Okay, one of the divisions lands. We were sighted, the task force was sighted partially yesterday, but there's so far no sign of enemy resistance either at sea, nor did he have any troops defending the base. Each amphibious task force carrying a division, supplies, and support troops. And then there are 2 separate task forces, amphibious task forces carrying um, naval engineers to assist in the landing, and artillery, aviation support. The way these task forces are organized, with approximately 25 ships per task force, uh, because we started just 3 hexes off the coast, they should be essentially fully unloaded of combat troops by sunup, by the first time enemy aircraft can. So the primary risk was in enemy surface ships. None were sighted, other than a few at Madras that appeared to be armed merchant cruisers and transport ships. We don't have good reconnaissance of the bases in the Bay of Bengal, though. So he could have hidden ships in an out of the way base. It doesn't look like he did. Looks like at least these waves will be fully unloaded. This is one of his wandering uh, minesweepers they have Borneo. Not sure, again, exactly what they're doing. He did attempt to conduct a deception landings off the northern coast of Australia, but he didn't sight my my pseudo invasion task force until too late. Looks like he's got a little cap over Bandoing today. Like decent success now. hitting Mandowing's airfield almost every turn. We're still way up high though because of the heavy flak units, flak and heavy flak he has. Every once in a while, get a supply hit, which sounds good. So we made no attempt to intervene, at least in the aim phase, against our invasion task forces. That's good. Looks like some Allied activity down near Canton Island. Well, looks like V-Day has gone fine. Here's another attack. Again, you have to take losses on both sides with a grain of salt. Looks like he's have to check. He's moved some. Oh, he's moved tanks into Manila. So he's potentially getting ready to try to attack me at Manila. He's bombarding Clark. It's getting very good reported loss ratios, though the real ones are much lower. Uh, I've got long range guns on their way. And this isn't really a risk to me. The bigger risk is if he tries to use his central position to move significant forces to Manila and attack my roughly, well, 1.5 divisions or so at Manila. Um, that's only times. We'll see if he tries it. It looks like he's moved armor that way. He continues to bombard here and bombard here. Speed through this. Okay. Well, we won't check your losses. Not what's actually important. So interesting. Two of my amphibious task forces did not land. While the rest did. It looks like everybody landed in very good order. Lost a handful of squads from like from the 5th. Notice because there's no enemy troops, even though we lost some troops offloading, there's no disruption or fatigue. 18th lost a few. 33rd. So 33rd lost. So between 6 and 8 squads. We've got 10, but the rest of so our shipping engineer unit did land properly. Our air division landed. Nest guns, the 15 centimeter T-89s are roughly a match for the long barreled 155s that the Americans have, and they outgun anything else, generally speaking. So the two available units into India. Have to land these two. That should be Imperial Guards and another regiment. And this should be support units, including paratroopers and A. But he didn't attack to say today, so my AA will be unloaded unless he successfully intervenes. With surface ships, AA, everybody will be unloaded before dawn tomorrow. And I have heavy and light pickets, covering forces. Right now, air support's being provided by Zeros from Zuho and Ruho. We have the Tainan Ku ready to fly in once we take the airfield. And we should have about 400 engineers when all is said and done. So to rapidly build up, let's see. So that's 250. And then, yeah, each of the divisions to actually have about 500 or 500 engineer squads uh, when we take the base to build up the airfield. See, the goal is immediately fly in recon and fighters to provide cap, recon to figure out his force distribution in the area, um, and then build up to level 2, where we can launch offensive missions to include drop paratroopers if the situation warrants. Right now, we're going to attack along the coast towards Madras and towards Cuttack, probably from Cuttack uh, to Jamshedpur and eventually to Calcutta, but want to take Bangalore, Madras. That'll be our priority, and Hyderabad with secondary effort towards Jamshedpur. And again, depending on his force distributions, we'll either have to invest Calcutta heavily or not. Anyway, good news in terms of the landings, and you get a sense of the scale of this. Uh, you know, there's 7, 9 amphibious task forces, each with about 25 ships per. So scale is pretty large. Should have uh, about 50,000 tons of supply offloaded. Um, this base, a lot of that will be over the spoilage limit. So building up the size of the space quickly, so don't lose too much of that supply over the coming weeks is important. Also, let's switch. So the last time we talked, um, we were extricating core in south of Changsha, which we've successfully done. Kicked his units out with some pretty significant losses here, and uh, defeated essentially a forward deployed unit out of Changsha, and we're now moving on Changsha. Which should force him to redeploy. Looks like, according to recon, he's abandoned Kukong. So we're going to grab Kukong, and then um, if he hasn't left rearguard, we'll push this way to threaten Hanyang and Changsha's rear. So right now, um, he still has considerable combat power, uh, but um, we're in a much better situation now than we were a week or so ago. Still banging away at him on the Ankang Road. His he's down to about 200 AV after committing a lot of his reserves. Um, so you know uh, he doesn't he doesn't have much more depth here, but it's still going to be a long fight. Looks like he's got the equivalent of 2 cores. It's probably 1 core split into its 3 component parts and some support units here, assuming our recon is accurate. This is just a remnant. And then he has another core split into its 3 parts and headquarters, etc. Behind, and that's it. These units are all um, worn down to 1/10 of their original strength. Our units are in good shape. We have fresh divisions and fresh tank regiments. Just going to have to um, open line of supply to these 2 divisions. Looks like he's vacated this hex, so one of our brigades will move in and then reopen supply this way. Meanwhile, a route brigade is going to open hex side here. Right now, we're keeping these units viable by air resupply. Speaking of our aircraft losses for the day, couple sallies. It's very sustainable losses. In almost 2 months of combat, I've lost 54 sallies total, and building that many per month. His buffaloes on cap, a Topsy, and Oscar C. Okay, let's check our situation here on Luzon. So here's for artillery with some long to change the math here. Losses here are interesting because we have a good army level artillery regiment, um, division from a B division, just light stuff. He definitely has artillery supremacy here, so these two regiments of guns should help stabilize that. We've pulled the two most worn out of the line. I'm sorry, um, this is from the Korean Army. These are veteran regiment, which is position at Clark. We've got roughly the equivalent of two divisions in Clark. Let's just in Fort. They've got some heavy guns. Might pull one of the anti-tank units out, redeploy it to Manila. Got one more Korean regiment to buy out. Wrestling with whether or not to send any tanks to Luzon. I prefer not to. So our pseudo invasion task force finally got his attention, but a couple turns too late. Though it's still helpful. What we're really trying to do here is evacuate 48th C, 1/3 of the 48th Division, um, since I've replaced the garrison with a Special Naval Landing Force unit and aviation support and some engineers. And I want to get the 48th out and reconstituted as reserve for SOPAC, Southwest PAC, using the Allied vernacular. The rest of the division is going to route the remnants of his Port Moresby force, move on to Buna. We're building up Buna to a level 2 port so we don't lose equipment when we evacuate it. And we'll have the 48th Division as the theater reserve. He hasn't shown any activity here. We're about to invest Numier. Signs. Looks like he's building up Pago Pago. Which, yeah, it's a logical move. It doesn't represent a threat to me. It's also Canton. Canton is more of a threat to my position. It's outside of escort range, but his B-24s he builds and can't be built up much more. So not a threat there. So as long as I continue to hold the uh, islands, atolls around Abattoir, we're in good position in the Gilberts. And this is our major base where we're putting most of our efforts. We're going to build up a couple adjacent atolls also. Just depends on whether it gives me time or not. It's still early. It's just February 1st. But remember, in the opening, I did not attack Pearl, so he has all his old battleships. A couple infantry divisions, 25th and 24th. Our invasion task force for Dutch Harbor is on the way. Our carriers are ready to move and support. I've echeloned these just because of timing. Carriers will catch up relatively quickly with the invasion task force. Though it is a 14 knot task force. Is there risk doing it this way? Yes, but he's shown this region right now, and I have air search that it seems a reasonable risk at the moment. Also going to move an AKE and some ADs into the vicinity of Amchitka Island to rearm uh, my surface units, just in case he gets uppity. And then Java's a bit anticlimactic now. We've got him uh, surrounded essentially at Mandawing, um, chipping away at his aircraft capability here. Next week or so, we should render that combat effective, which uh, allows us to take Terapo. Going to use a couple regiments of the Theater Reserve, Dutch East Indie Theater Reserve, the 1st Division, to take Cagayan and perhaps take all of Mindanao. We'll see how he's deployed. We grabbed an airfield, and so we're ready to conduct that operation as soon as we get our transports assets available. Unloading the 1st Division, the 21st Division, first of the divisions to go at Bandoing. These transports will cycle back to Singapore, grab and we'll make our first attacks at Bandoing um, by the by about the 10th of February, I would expect. Meanwhile, bombers will, now that we've been able to damage his airfield each turn, controlling any fort building, will go after the light infantry. And I've got more bombers, just need to get the aviation support to adequate levels at Batavia to bring in the rest of my bombers. So disaster can strike the Japanese at any point, but at least D-Day in India has gone smoothly, and the next couple turns we'll know more about his deployments. But pretty looking good for the forces of Japan, and I look forward to our next chance to chat. Enjoy your day.